I have made my project, which is a static site deployment platform. What it does is similar to what a Netlify does, what a render or a Vercel does for deploying a static site. Here is a detailed architecture of the project which I have built. Uh, it includes various microservices, and I have used a Redis to decouple those services and make it a highly scalable system. So let me give a overview of the services, and after that we would go to a deep dive into how those services perform, how those services coordinate with each other, and make this a highly scalable static site deployment platform, right? uh, we have a central auth service and a login service, a request service, upload service, and a deploy service. Beside that, we have used a uh, Redis stream as a queue to for a inter-service communication. We have used AWS S3 bucket uh, for our for storing our static files, and this overall all the systems would be deployed on a AWS EC2 instances. So let's first go through the flow. We have a React front end through which a client would log in. Their central auth service comes into the picture. The client would log in, and client would provide a public or a GitHub repository link. Whenever the client when client submits it, this repo URL would go to our upload service. As I have said, it is a distributed system. All the things would not take place at one service. We have distributed the workload to the different services, so our overall system become a scalable. So this upload service, what upload service does is, it gets the repo URL from the client. It clones the repo URL in its local. The upload service would do simple a git clone to the GitHub repo provided by the client, and it would download the local copy of the project, and it would upload the project files to our development S3 bucket, and it would generate a unique project ID. Right? It would generate a unique project ID, and it would push it to the Redis stream, and we have named our project with the project ID and uploaded that to the S3 bucket. Whenever we upload our whenever we push our project ID to the Redis queue, we have our deploy service has subscribed to the Redis queue, so that our deploy service would instantly pull that project ID. It will download that project from our development S3 bucket, and it would make that project repo available locally, and it would run the build commands provided by the client. Let's say we are using a React project, so it would first of all install all the dependencies npm I, then it would run a build command, which for the React we would say is npm run build, simple. So after that, the build file will be available to us. So what deploy service would do is, after the making the build file, it would upload that build file to our S3 bucket, right? So till now, what we have done is, our client has provided us the repo URL. We have cloned that repo in our through our upload service. Upload service cloned the repo, local project repo, and uploaded that project file, raw project file, not the build file, project file, to our S3 development bucket. The upload service work is over. It has generated the project ID and pushed it to the Redis queue. The deploy service, who has subscribed to the Redis queue, would pull the project ID. It will scan the development bucket, download the project file. Thereafter downloading the project file, it would run the build commands, which in the case for React is npm I and npm run build. After this, we have the build file available in the deploy service. What deploy service would do is, next it would upload the build file to our production S3 bucket, and all the logs which are generated till now would be logged directly to the client's front end and our database through a logging service. Logging service have a similar Redis stream queue, and all the logs generated would be pushed to a Redis queue, and this would be stream to the client via WebSocket connection on a front end, and it would even stream to the our database, let's say Postgre or a MongoDB database what we have taken. Thereafter, our deployment is done. We have a project ID through which we can access our project. So the client would be notified that your project is updated. Client is given a project ID and the access URL. Thereafter, the client would request, let's say, qav.com. This is our project ID through which client would request the request service. Here comes the request service in picture. After the deployment, the request service, whenever a client requests a website, the request service through the project ID would request a static files, HTML, CSS, and the assets to our S3 production bucket, and it would serve that client after receiving from the S3 bucket back to the client, and client would enjoy our services. As we have seen, we have multiple services here. We have 4 to 5 services which work hand in hand with each other. However, we have decoupled them. Well, how about the security? So, to manage that, we have built a central auth service. What this service would do is, it would centralize authentication for all our services. It has a JWT based authentication and authorization. This would ensure that our inter-service communications stay secure and no outside third party can access our inter-services, right? So this is a detailed overview of how this project works. Now we would see a live demo and how the client would see on a front end. So whenever a client comes, he would log in through one of these services. So let us log in through a GitHub. So once we are logged into GitHub, we would be redirected to our overview page. Before I have tested these 2 websites, so now let us deploy a new website. So we would create a static site, and what we do is, let me take a repository from my GitHub, a repository link here. So I would take my portfolio repository link from GitHub. I will copy the GitHub link, I would paste here, and I would name my project, let's say my portfolio, and I would click deploy. So our current deployment status is processing. It is submitting our repository, and once our deployment process is started, we would also be able to see the live logs of what is happening. If some error occurs, we will be getting to know that. It would take some time for our project to get deployed. So as we have seen in our system design diagram, first of all it would go to the upload service, then it would go for the different services. As we can see, we are able to see the live logs of what happened. So the upload service has found all this and it is doing its job. Our build is successful and it is uploading our assets back to our S3 bucket. So as we can see, all the statics file are deployed. Here it has uploaded our HTML, all static files, and our job is completed, and now we can view our live site. As we can see, I am able to access my deployed live static site. And if I go to my overview and see that my project is deployed and all the logs are available here, all the live logs are available here, and I can access my site from here. Thank you.